you that have joined us this morning. So we're joined by Anita Taylor, founder and director of the Trinity Buoy Wharf Drawing Prize, Dean of Jordanstone, University of Dundee, which is my boss as well. I'm very, very honoured to have had Anita in my life and career for some time. Co-director of Drawing Projects UK, which is another impact of the Trinity Buoy Wharf Drawing Prize. She has a global career as an artist, an educator, a writer and curator. Hopefully some of you know her work. She makes extraordinary charcoal drawings, usually of the artist as model. We could call them self-portraits, but we'll talk about the artist as model instead. I think that's your preferred way of describing them. So drawing is not only part of her outward-facing practice, with all the support that Anita gives to the drawing community through her activities as role as an educator, but it's also part of her personal creative practice as well. She was Dean of Bath School of Art and Design, Director of the National Art School in Sydney, Australia, Dean of Wimbledon, Director of the Research Centre for Drawing at UAL. It's a very long list of the things that Anita has done, and she is a model of real leadership in the arts. And I would say she is a centre for drawing. I think her knowledge and experience with heading up this prize, as well as numerous other activities Anita's involved with, means she is an outstanding, she has expertise in the field of drawing beyond anyone I can think of, actually. So very lucky to have her with us this morning. She's just recovering from finishing installing the latest show, so which we will see get a chance to visit at the end of our conversation. So we'll be in conversation for about an hour, and then we'll go through to the show. We're also joined this morning by Irene Barberis at Metasenta, which is an incredible kind of networking organisation, and the Global Centre for Drawing, which is under the umbrella of Metasenta, but we will talk about that. She's also a remarkable artist, and we've been lucky in Dundee to have had Irene up in the studios over the summer, producing an incredible body of work. Stepping into the studio has been like stepping into one of your tapestries flight. With these, the recent project is the Solar Wit project, which I'm hoping you will talk about, but there have also been these other incredibly dynamic combinations of drawing and technology to produce the Tapestry of Light, which is a reflection on the Book of Revelations. No small task, it's a vast work, both in terms of the kind of time involved, the technological advances involved, and the relationship with that source material. You know, to make a work about the apocalypse is no small feat. But the studio in Dundee has been filled with the Solar Wit project with an incredible set of elements, an absolute euphoric experience of colour and line and drawing. So I've been very lucky to visit Irene in the studio, and she's been very generous with students as well. We took some of the students from the MFA drawing to talk with you about your work, and she was very generous with her story. We're also joined by David Alston, who is a trustee of the Evelyn Williams Trust, who, as some of you are familiar with, give out a really significant award as part of the Trinity Buoy Wharf Prize exhibition programme. It's a really important asset of the prize that supports an artist's practice, both with financial support, which is increasingly in short supply in our industry, and significant platforms to show and share work. So it's had a really big impact on the prize as well, that the Evelyn Williams Trust has joined it. But that trust has been supporting drawing in a number of ways for a number of years, so I'm hoping David will talk about that. David, again, has many titles in his history. My favourite is the Keeper of Art from the Museum of Wales. I think that's a wonderful, yes, we all want to be keepers of art. It's a lovely protective term. He's been director of Arts Council of Wales, Keeper of Art and Museum of Wales. You've also written about Evelyn Williams' work and have intimate association with her practice, and you will speak to that knowledge of her as well today. And then last but not least, Elisa Alaluusua. How did I do? We did practice. Elisa's lives between London and Finland. Is an artist, thinker, writer. Her practice is both paper-based and film-based. We're sitting behind her most recent piece that's in the show, which is lovely to have that framing our conversation. And has a long history with the Trinity Wharf Drawing Prize. She was the first prize winner in 2022. Some of you may remember her work there. Second prize winner in 2015. She has had drawings included in the show on several occasions. And she's also had the experience of being rejected by the Trinity Buoy Wharf Drawing Prize. So I think she's going to speak to all of those things, which is, it's part of the cycle of the creative year. Her PhD, which has been widely shared, was about sketchbooks and exploring their status for artists. Again, through writing, through film works. Again, that might crop up in our conversation as well. So we have a lot of expertise on this panel, and I should introduce myself. Tania Kovats. I'm Professor for Drawing and Making at University of Dundee. I'm also an artist. I write and draw and write about drawing. And I have recently been working in film, thinking about what's going on there. But thank you so much. We do want to hear from you as well. This is not a one-way conversation, so don't get too comfy. But first of all, Anita is going to introduce a short kind of synopsis of a very long narrative, which is the Trinity Buoy Wharf Drawing Prize.
So I'm going to speak very briefly about that. Thank you, Tania, and thank you for a very generous introduction and for convening this session. We're heading into the 30th year, which is why we thought we might do some conversations around impact. We're also in the 6th year of funding from Trinity Buoy Wharf Trust. This expedition of drawing began actually in 1993 for me, in that there is a predecessor project to what is now the Trinity Buoy Wharf Drawing Prize, which is called Melbourne Drawing Associates, and they ran an exhibition from their kitchen table in Melbourne, and their priority was that they did something for drawing, and it wasn't London-centric. London went to the regions, which in 1993 was probably a much bigger deal than it is at the moment. So in 1993, I was awarded a prize. I was awarded the Melbourne Prize for Drawing from Diana Petherbridge, Norman Blaney and Stephen Farthing were the selectors. And the Melbourne Drawing Associates had asked us, because they were showing it in the basement of the library in Melbourne, and it was Alston, Neil, Martin Pitts, and I have a gap on the third person who was working with them. They've been talking to us. I was head of painting at Cheltenham at the University of Gloucestershire at the time, teaching drawing, systematic drawing, comprehensive, practical history of drawing we were teaching, I would say. And they'd asked if we would take the show on tour. And then Martin got a job as Dean of Middlesex, and they said, would you like to take this project on and do something with it? So we decided that we would do that for two reasons. One was to give students access to who was drawing what we could call a drawing. That drawing was an active, contemporary thing that people were making. It was very hard to see contemporary drawing at the time. And we also set it up as a professional practice project, so the students could actually see what happened, to understand what a rejection from an open show means, to understand what an open show does, and the opportunity that it gives, and to give them access as silent witnesses to a selection process. They devised everything in that first year, and we worked with them, and they ran the project. But we needed to take a year out after year one, because the project was bigger than Ben Home. It came with a project they kindly supported us Nobel Prize of £1,000 from Wrexham Derwent, so there's another narrative in there that comes around again in the 2000s. And that's all we had. We had an enterprise and higher education grant to run it. And we realised that we showed 196 drawings, we got phenomenal artists in the show, because actually there's a huge passion for the role of drawing in contemporary practice by practitioners as well as amazing selectors. So we took a year out to get some funding. We had 3 years of being funded by a portfolio of charities. And then in 2000, the Derwent Foundation, we were introduced to them, and they were, I don't know if this is the right story you want actually, they were interested to, they ran the painting prize, and we were called the Cheltenham Open Drawing Exhibition. It was always an exhibition that gave rewards and awards, because it's a huge accolade of success to get into a show through these processes. So we became the Derwent Drawing Prize with a 1-year trial with the Derwent Foundation, because it was the only project they hadn't originated themselves. And then we stayed with them for 17 years, and that gave us an enormous capacity to grow through their support, but their remit was to support emerging fields, emerging artists, and almost £1 million of grant funding by 2017. It was fair to say we weren't really an emerging field anymore, because by then we had 3,500 submissions every year. We had a touring show that went across the UK with a fully illustrated publication. We've had amazing selectors, including Tania Kovats and David Alston across the years. David is from 1998, Tania from 2008, I think. And working during in 2022. Might be later. So we've had, the thing that we set out was we'd have a different panel every year. There would always be an artist on the panel. There was 1 year that didn't have an artist. And we would always largely have 3, because then we could have a real dialogue about what drawing was. And we didn't want to say what a drawing was. We didn't want to know what we were going to expect. Our question was always, what is a drawing? Who's drawing? What do they call a drawing? How do we define a drawing? And we leave it to the panel. So all I do is convene the panels and the structure every year. That's probably enough from me. But it's been phenomenal to see. I mean, I've seen every drawing submitted, apart from 1 year when I was stranded in Australia and couldn't get back for 2 days in July. So I've seen literally every drawing submitted. And the one thing that I think is really important for people to understand, because success and failure is a peculiar thing. This panel see every drawing at least once, and that's something that they don't see it by walking by them when they might lose a slip of concentration. We set the work out so that they can apprehend it as the drawing is intended as best as it can in the context of their submission. So lots of complex things in there and handy there.
Thank you, Anita. That's, like I say, it's a very long and complex narrative. And just the work, I mean, we come and we enjoy these shows, but the kind of infrastructure around a large open show, funding it, organising it, keeping work safe, I mean, it's so massive. It's so massive. But anyway, yes, that work does take place as well as the selection. And yes, we do see every single drawing, which is quite something. I thought I'd never make a drawing again after selecting. I was like, oh, there's definitely enough drawings in the world. Why would I go back to the studio and make another one? But I got over that. Anyway, I'm digressing. Irene, would you like to speak? Irene's prepared something she wants to. She's got a lot of things she's trying to.
Thank you.
Share today.
Yes, well, I'm trying to cover all the things you asked me.
Yeah.
Okay, do you mind if I stand? Okay. I'm very honoured to be here on this panel for such a fabulous celebration of drawing meeting. The Trinity Buoy Wharf Drawing Prize, 30 years of inspired opportunity for artists across the world. How marvellous and what an impactful history. Again, Anita. Anita, I met you in the early 2000s while you were working with Stephen Farthing on the Drawing Centre at the University of Arts London, and the Jerwood Drawing Prize had already been established for a decade. This was really inspiring. All right, now first and foremost, I make all my decisions as an artist. I studied classical ballet for 16 years and was well trained in movement and the body as an instrument of spatial drawing. At present, I choreograph in colour, making notations of my intuitive colour decisions and movements after I make the works. The music comes from the 13 music tapes that Sol LeWitt left in his Chester studio in 2007. I've had the great privilege to be the first artist to make work in his Chester studio, apart from his daughter Evelyn Williams, the artist, a fantastic young artist, and I'm working across a large and diverse project on the concentric influences that he and his work have had across the world. And the Duncan of Alston is my home for the project in the UK. In the early 2000s, I developed a new drawing course at RMIT University in Australia with two colleagues. I saw the need to make projects quickly and to not be slowed by university systems. I invented a small, fast and flexible research centre called Metasenta at RMIT that could function between the university and the wider community, linking, networking and initiating high-quality international arts research projects, many grounded in drawing. It received magnificent funding from Dr. Po Chung from Hong Kong, and I was then able to establish many international projects based around drawing. One initiative was to establish the Global Centre for Drawing and Studio, and this has been functioning since 2006, inspired by the early meeting with Anita and Stephen. The Global Centre for Drawing's aim has been to create international opportunities for artists and students and to establish and continually undergird the importance of expanded drawing as an international language across borders. My practice is based in drawing, painting and installation. I think through making, through the process of drawing, gesture, intuition and colour, structure and secret geometry, exploring those elements that I am dialoguing with, capturing and embracing whatever material seems to speak for the subject, be it falling illuminated lines of new forms of lighting, or working across science and art with nanoparticle technologies for the large apocalypse tapestries and the new LeWitt tapestry suite. My thoughts on drawing. Drawing is a continuum, a multifaceted, transdisciplinary global practice. It is something almost every person encounters and partakes in at some time and some period during their lives, from the early childhood marks of notations, writings and texts, to open-ended contemporary processes. Drawing is akin to a visionary process, is open-ended, in itself is kinetic. It is a verb, an action, a movement across a thought, gesture and trace. It is the mark and its residue. There are no rules. Drawing can be as minimal as a breath and as complex as the wave structures and recordings of the ocean. Drawing is the kinesthetic, a movement between points, a connection, recognition, gesture of any idea, mark, trace, line, simple shape, medium, space or surface. Everyone has their own language of the mark. Drawing is the sensory and or conceptual transmission of idea. It is a cultural conduit for articulating the transformation of meanings and experience, a cultural lens through which to view complexities of human endeavour and the environment, social, political and economic forces of globalisation. A drawing carries the artist's intentions and visual knowledge, allowing others to experience their insights. It is the poetry of the mark-making, the intuitive response to the visible, invisible and conceptual, which can elevate the ordinary into the extraordinary. A great drawing or a great work of art transforms you. It shifts your being, your thinking, emotions and perceptions. You are transfigured by the interaction. You move away knowing that you are altered, your perceptions changed, and your thinking expanded. It is liberating, or it can be the most confronting. The language of drawing is truly international. I've experienced the great power of the language of drawing across borders, from Tibet, where some artists were so moved that another group of artists had come to visit them, to dialogue and to make works across cultures and to learn from one another, to Bahrain, where it was at that time difficult to go out alone as a female. However, we met across a spectrum of fabulous artists, many involved in the process of drawing. From Western Europe to Australia, the Global Centre for Drawing, its studio, the Metaspace, and the Metasenta have been and are ready to go, move and do. Drawing allows us to experience freedom of thinking, the freedom of thought, which is at the heart of every artist, I believe. No matter what country nor place on earth, the desire to move across the great expanse of being, perception and experience through mark making. The Trinity Buoy Wharf Drawing Prize and the intentions of it, Anita, incorporate all that I have spoken of. It is truly a beacon and one of the most important pivots in drawing in the drawing world calendar today. Congratulations, Anita, on this 30th anniversary, and to all involved and to all artists. Thank you.
That was wonderful. It was wonderful to hear your reflections on drawing and your relationship to it. And we will see it living and breathing. So many of the things you've said will be in our minds as we look at the work today. Thank you. David. We've got there's another mic.
Is this?
Yes.
Is this on? No, it's not on.
Oh, so there are certain things you particularly wanted to speak to.
Yeah, but happy birthday. Yes, 30 years. It feels a long time. It feels a long time since the 1990s. This is 1996.
Oh, wow.
96.
Wow.
Okay. This is 2023. I think that the relative weight of those two tones doesn't necessarily make a difference, because the drawings in the 1990s were as pertinent, as punchy, as stopping you in your tracks as they would be tonight and today. Nonetheless, the atmosphere in the 1990s was that drawing as a discipline was dropping out of art schools. I was very struck in the 1990s because I was working with Diana Petherbridge quite a lot. I'd done group exhibitions with Diana. She was nurturing her project, a large tome which emerged in the 2007, I think it was. But the first iteration was this exhibition called The Primacy of Drawing. And Diana reflected and passed the reflection on to me as well, that however under threat drawing appeared in the major art press or whatever, or even in the curriculum, or, it never went away for artists. She said, in this book, no artist is not interested in drawing. And I think that's quite profound, and it's one of the reasons why drawing, why your practice has survived, changed, altered, blossomed, because artists do have that fascination for the way a drawing communicates, even if they keep it to themselves. And some of those artists that perhaps best known for unmade beds and tents with embroidery, Tracy Emin is at heart a draftsperson. She's at heart a drawer. And most of her core work, I would say, still comes back to drawing. So it's something absolutely fundamental. And in the 1990s, we sort of lost sight. But things were happening around an annual exhibition that was making a point of saying, here's the practice currently, here's what's going on, here's a snapshot, and it will be multifarious, and it can lead you in all sorts of directions. My point of entry to drawings was, as a very young curator, to be given access to a collection in Christchurch, Oxford, of over 2,000 Old Master drawings. They stopped in 1765. But I had the privilege of the last years of one of the connoisseur scholars who was working in drawing at the time, James Byam Shaw. James Byam Shaw had already done his catalogue of the drawings, he was, at the end of his life, he was tidying up. The study in Christchurch, the office in Christchurch of the picture gallery, is lined with his books, which he used to draw up the catalogue. And he was clearing out his papers, and he was throwing things out. And I said, what are you throwing out? And he said, well, it's worthless. It's the notes I took in the British Museum in the 1920s when I was... and they're Michelangelo's drawings. That looks probably more like a Cézanne than a Michelangelo. But my curatorial practice meant that when I visited museums, and I did a lot of that in formative years, I would always try and make a drawing of what really grabbed me. And the drawing was appalling and bad. Well, bad, it wasn't. But I knew what I'd been looking at just by going back to that drawing. And I think that sense that drawing makes you look is so profound for artists. And I instantly got that working amongst Old Master drawings. When people like Alan Johnston, who had a show in MoMA in Oxford, did these columnar minimalist drawings, turned up in my office and said, I'd love to explore the drawing collection. And I suddenly began to piece together his practice seems way, way off, this Old Master. But I spent probably the most fascinating time with him in an afternoon, just saying, well, you might like this. Going from box to box. Because that passion for his discipline, or what he was doing through drawing, extended out to, contemporaries. The contemporaries were a Leonardo drawing or a Verrocchio drawing. And that, in a way, I passed. I mean, Diana didn't need any pushing to look at Old Master drawing, but she realised and deliberately selected the whole gamut of drawings for crucial shows in the 90s that said, look at this drawing rather than look at this valuable Leonardo or whatever. Look at it as a drawing. And that evening out of the plane of historical knowledge and contemporary knowledge was probably crucial to stoking up some aspect of interest in contemporary drawing. Evelyn Williams was passionate about drawing. She drew every day in her studio as an exercise to start, not necessarily the piece that she was going to be working on, but just to get in the frame of mind to be thinking about work. So it was like limbering up, it was sort of gymnastics in a way. And I just share with you, having set up a trust in her lifetime, she then stepped away from the trust and just let the trustees to get on with it. But she said, do something about drawing, do something for women artists. The trust took that away, and through the 90s tried to look at the state of academia and say, if there could be a drawing fellowship in Winchester, or if there could be a drawing fellowship in Norwich, or if there was added encouragement that drawing stayed alive as an expanding practice, then that would be a good thing. So in the 90s, a whole series of art school-based projects happened because of the trust. The trust is not well endowed, it's very humbly endowed, but in recent times, thanks to the Trinity Buoy Wharf Drawing Prize and Anita's activism for a passion for drawing, we've been able to create a three-way partnership between Drawing Projects UK, Hastings Contemporary, the former German gallery, but Hastings Contemporary now, and the Trust. The Trust found a prize which allows an artist to make complete freedom over a project, time to realise that project. It's a £10,000 prize. It's probably eaten away by inflation these days, but it's still buying out time for that artist or creating a space. And the added benefit is at the end there's a show in Hastings Contemporary. And Barbara Walker was our first award winner. She was enabled to have the time and space to think about an initial series of works called Vanishing Point. Over the last 5 years, people are really sitting up and taking notice of the work. And I was absolutely thrilled last night to walk into her part of the Turner Prize and to walk in it with two of the Windrush sitters that she's worked with to create large presences in the gallery to say they're not going to go away, the drawing isn't going to go away as making a statement. Barbara was the first fellow. Penny McCarthy did a superb show, a very dreamy show in Hastings 2 years ago. And next week, Roland Hicks, extraordinary work, definitely double take sort of work. You have to look at it twice to realise what's going on. And Roland is making a sort of drawing installation, but it'll feel like a sort of very temporary room. And I think the accolade would be Roland, for his visitors, would sort of to look into the gallery and probably think, oh, it's not finished yet, or they've not done it yet, or it's being installed, and walk away. And actually, each bit is meticulously crafted there. So, and this evening we'll be in a position to announce our fourth Evelyn Williams fellow. And I wanted to just crave your indulgence, just to Evie opened a drawing biennale in Wales in 1999. I'm just going to read what I only came across this a few weeks ago, but it's her speech to open the Wales Biennale of Drawing. I often ask myself what makes a drawing good. Many people much cleverer than me have tried to crack this one. I wrote once of its usefulness. It can be an invaluable aid to memory or to plan the construction of a work in any medium, or a simple way to plug into the unconscious and introduce the humanity of man-made marks rather than those of a machine. I've discovered it's not something easily taught or learnt. I know that before beginning a drawing, a leap of faith is necessary, and I believe that we need a very strong idea of what our intentions are and why we are doing it. And later she says, an ambition for a drawing would be of a force that builds as it travels across the surface of the paper, ending in an image that breathes. If it succeeds, it's because of tension. If it fails, it's because the line has become slack, and when the line sags, we are left with something that isn't a drawing, or a vague shadow of what it might have been. I believe objects, a flower, a portrait, contains a truth wrapped around by its appearance, and that what you see isn't necessarily the truth at all. There are veils behind which there are more layers, more to discover, perhaps something quite different, and behind the layers, the kernel of the subject. Only by stripping them away can the centre be discovered, and the outside doesn't describe that at all. I think it's a really good description of her work, but it's also very provocative of what you are looking at when you look at the drawing. Anyway.
It's lovely. Thank you, David. Describe that. And it's really useful to just reflect as well of the importance of the sort of structures around drawing that hold on to it. I mean, it is the most contingent of forms. Pencil on paper is one of the least expensive ways to make a mark in the world. It's cropping up more, just sometimes for those reasons. But those acts of support and generosity and funding and highlighting are so important to maintaining this conversation around drawing. It is something we all partake in, but having that infrastructure is so valuable. Elisa, how would you like to approach the impact of the Trinity Buoy Wharf Drawing Prize on your works? It's been a kind of part of your calendar, you were saying earlier, which is a wonderful way to reflect on it. So, over to you.
Thank you. I'm glad you asked me a question, because I thought I don't know what to say next. And what was I to say? And it's such an honour to be here, so thank you for having me. Yes, because I want many things actually. I'll say some of the things I thought about when David was speaking. It's for example, the colour of the catalogue is the same. I quite like that. Well, it has, but there's a link. So I thought, what are the things that I could talk about? Are the things in drawing staying the same or changing? And I think that's quite curious. Also, Irene, you talked about how there's a connecting points, and I thought that was quite interesting. How drawing connects points, or how we handle drawings, and how, particularly with exhibitions, showing work, what do you do with drawings? How there's a wonderful, I remember a curator and an artist talking a long time ago. I had a video piece at the Royal Academy, an exhibition where they showed drawings and sketchbooks of their collection, and at the beginning of a PhD journey, and they were laughing about it, but the curator said to the artist, who they knew one another, that, oh, yes, immediately when your work, your sketchbook came to us to be put in the exhibition, we put the gloves on and started to holding gloves rather than bare hands. And that's really odd, isn't it? That how something changes its sort of value and how we deal with something. I think that's fascinating when you are dealing with hundreds and thousands of drawings. I'd love to be, there, just seeing that, what actually happens in the room, and maybe you could give some sort of, maybe you don't want to give us any insight into the actual process. How do you look at so many drawings and how they are selected? And so I guess maybe the question I could talk about is that that's one of the drawings I have in the exhibition this year. I was very lucky to have, and I say seriously lucky to have 2 drawings selected this year. And the same happened last year. I had one drawing on paper and a video piece, and the video piece was awarded the first prize, which was just extraordinary. From the point of being an artist, it's of course encouragement, and it gives you reassurance that keep going. Because as an artist, we all know how hard it is sometimes. You wonder, why am I doing this day after day, and it's lonely at the studio, and so forth. So any kind of encouragement is, of course, super valuable. So I've been selected 4 times. 2015, 2017, and last year, this year. So that has been very important to me, artistic, as a professionally as an artist, but also I think you gave a really wonderful point, Tania, when you said that thinking about it personally and professionally, and I guess the difference to me, from my point of view, my personal relationship with drawing is very much that I think it's about leaving a mark. And whether it's a mark on snow or paper, or a mark in somebody's mind, or sort of making a work that speaks to someone. So you're leaving a mark in that sense. And then professionally, it is very much belonging to the community of drawing artists, or people who are interested in drawing. And I value that really most, perhaps. I know that when I come here, I meet like-minded people. You're all interested in drawings, and you all see value in it, and it's so important. And there is not enough time. I mean, it really hasn't got enough time. Educational context, for example, it's terrible how students are not given the time unless they find it themselves. So this is super important from that point of view. It raises the awareness and the importance of drawings and carries it as it should be carried. Shall I leave? Because I think so much has been said that maybe you want to respond to something what has been said earlier. I'm happy to stop here and then come back. Yeah.
Thank you. And also we are in the lovely position of having your work speaking for you as well, and how you expand the form. I know some of your drawings are pencil marks on paper, and smaller drawings, some are installations, and also expanded into the cinematic realm. So it's lovely to have the presence of the drawing behind us. I would actually like to ask Anita that question. I mean, you talk so well, you tell the story of the Trinity Buoy Wharf Drawing Prize so well, but I wonder how the impact of it on you personally. You may not like the question, actually. You can refuse to answer. But this is something you have carried. You draw as well as a practitioner. I wonder if it's a useful point at the 30-year birthday party to reflect on it for you personally.
This is the question I hadn't really prepared for, even Tania told me. For me as a practitioner, I think it's really important that there is a place for drawing. And actually for me it's been about how do we... I think through drawing, I live my career through drawing. So for me, drawing is the thing that enables me to understand where I am in this particular moment in time, this particular place. So drawing is something that's intrinsic to thinking, communicating, expression, documenting, all of those things that are the qualities of drawing. So the project itself, because I call it a project, it's been through many iterations, it's become what it is. It is about building that community through drawing, but for me it's the capacity of drawing to stop you in your moment. So, you know, I'm really privileged. I see thousands of thoughts every year which are really deeply compelling. You know, we work with people to talk about drawing, to think about what drawing can be, what it might be, how it is, what it means to them. I think it's been the most humbling, I think, about this project, because it is it's an open. There are challenges about what an open exhibition is. We all get that. It's been about being artist-led, trying to find a way through that, because it really has a valuable place. Once you leave art school, or and there are a number of people in the show next door who've never been to art school. It's a place where you come together, to draw together, to think together, to engage through a medium or an act rather than a medium. That's pretty intrinsic to our experiences. It's a non-verbal, sometimes verbal way of communicating. And I think for me it's that deep relationship that we have with drawing that for me it's an affirmation, not a confirmation. And every year when I think, am I really going to do it again? It is actually, there is a community who have a value for it, but actually it is in the end, there's always, there are amazing drawings that you see, and in a way that we apprehend the worlds that we live in. The show next door is full of things, you know, for people who've been to prison through just stop all protests, to people observing the abortion rights protests in the US, to people who are about being present in the world and really concentrating on nature, finding a place that's very quiet to exist in. I mean, it fulfills a full panoply of what it is, to use somebody else's quote, what it is to be human. And for me, in the end, that's the affirmation. What it's done to me in my practice, I don't have a forum to have an open exhibition opportunity, but there are. So I would say that there has been something where, in the very early years, when no one knew what I did, because I was just an academic, we did submit because it's completely anonymous. We see the work on its own without information. So even on the films, we strip it out for people to view, because we want it to be judged, not the right word, selected, responded to on the basis of the drawings itself as it's presented. So that does mean that you can see things come through in a different way. You know, I don't know what else to say really, I haven't looked a bit. Everyone, I've seen amazing drawings, and handling drawings, we've handled amazing things. I mean, those early years have people like Rose Wiley, Michael Simpson, Tom Phillips once sent us a box of hand-drawn books, just in a box, with no means of presentation. So part of my job has been how to solve, and not always very well, how you present drawings, because they come from the studio for many people. You know, I can remember that box with Tom Phillips arriving, and everyone going, is it really from Tom Phillips, or is it the other Tom Phillips? And we opened the box, and that came with 6 hand-drawn every page of bubbles. So we've seen and handled amazing things. We don't know how amazing they are until we get through history. I mean, Rose and other people were there really supporting the project. But you know, it's a privilege. We've seen fantastic things. I think it's wonderful. If we talk about community, there are many people who've won the awards, and main awards, who still submit regularly. There's no parameters around what it might be that comes in. So I always feel very humbled that we handle thousands of things, hopefully, more or less, not always, as well as we absolutely can, that we put the artist at the heart of how we do that. And we work with amazing selectors.
Thank you, Rita. I mean, yes, the drawing challenges the form of itself all the time. So there's no reason why it would always be obvious how to handle a drawing that arrives, or, you know, this show constantly challenges what is understood by drawing as well. It's constantly expanding it. We've mentioned the drawing community a number of times. I feel like I'm in the middle of it right now. And I wanted to open the conversation a little to anyone that felt like this show has an impact on their practice. And just maybe speak to that if anyone feels open to do that. I know the drawing community has moved online very successfully. We're joined here by Chloe Rates, who has been an absolute pioneer of how to make digital connection with drawing, and I've enjoyed working with Chloe and Anita online, drawing correspondence. One of a number of things that had to make that move due to recent kind of closure of the real world. But this is an event in person. It's very nice that you're here. It'd be nice to hear why you're here. You know, what's your relationship to the show? What's your relationship to drawing? How does this show help sustain your drawing practice? I don't know if anyone wanted to speak to that.
Or ask a question.
Or ask a question. Yeah, you can just ask a question around Laura. Should I run out with this?
You
Just
might.
talk very loud.
That's what the Peter can hear.
So I was really fortunate and privileged.
Sorry, Tania.
I was really fortunate and privileged to do a drawing correspondence course about 18 months ago with Chloe, Anita and Tania. And that in itself was transformative for me in my kind of approach and understanding of drawing, and it gave me an entry into this world, really. And also from that, the group of people that I did that with, who were based all over the UK, we've remained together as a kind of collective, and we exhibited at the beginning of this summer. And people from that group have had work in the Trinity Buoy Wharf. And I think that as a community, which you've all spoken about, but you particularly, the openness and warmth and generosity that I know many other people who are involved in the community have experienced is extraordinary, and it speaks of drawing and what drawing is, but it also, I just think, speaks to the people that are involved in it and that choose it as part of their practice, artists that choose it as part of their practice and as an important part of their practice, in a way that perhaps other pockets of the art world don't, or it doesn't exist in quite that way. That was just sort of me and where I'm from, and just, huge thank you. Just that generosity that people like you share is incredibly inspirational.
That's very kind, Laura. I mean, I suppose that's the other thing too, just the fact that events like this happen around the show. There's an educational programme, there are drawing events, conversations about drawing, actual drawing. You know, it's not just come and see the things on the wall. It's like actually make drawings from it, or think about, enter that conversation, enter that community through the show. The Working Drawing Prize extends that kind of understanding of drawings that have jobs to do, instead of sorts of tasks or drawings that help work something out. I don't know if anyone else wanted to speak to their understanding of this.
Just wanted to say that I think I felt very shy about entering the drawing competition for a long time. I think I had one go back in 2000 or something. In fact, I do remember the Welsh Drawing Biennale, which was back in the 90s as well. But having been in it before, I was delighted to find how kind everyone was and how friendly everyone was, and I then felt I didn't know how to go before, but that's what impressed me, that it wasn't at all inaccessible. So it's really
I would say I think that's the quality of drawing. There is an open-ended nature to drawing. You're alluding to the way artists are always interested in drawings, interested in the drawings of the past, cross-disciplinary drawing, not just the drawings of artists, but it is a friendly space. I think you're experiencing that today.
Can I try to say something about that, which I think is really useful, this idea of belonging to a community, a friendly community, welcoming community, which is open democratically to everyone. I think that's a very brilliant thing about it. That, you can draw, as I say, with a piece of paper and some, or with your body. So it is in that way open to everyone. And then when we say drawing, everybody has an idea that, okay, we're talking about drawing, great. But at the same time, it is so broad that it encompasses so many different methods of making drawings and thinking about drawings, and just it is a way of being in a sense. So I think that's a really quite particular aspect of the community, that we all have an idea what it is and what it represents to us, but actually it could be anything. And that's the exciting thing about it.
Any other questions?
Thank you. I feel a little awkward about what I'm about to say, and I apologise for that. But I want to ask you actually about gatekeeping, and that, and I speak to somebody who has applied for this, and that you can only use the balance that you want to do. And from the outside, it seems like it is a friendly community once you've been accepted and welcomed into the gate. And I'm really curious to know about that sense of responsibility that you as the selectors have to all those people when you're selecting, and the gatekeeping that goes on in the art world, and that there are barriers. And I can see that it can be friendly, but it is also, I want to just bring up that gatekeeping side of it and talk about, that projection and also that responsibility that you must have.
Take it, would you want to
I can speak to.
Yep.
We both. Anita hasn't selected this far as I don't. Oh, you have? Oh, when did you select?
1996. 2003.
Yes, I think it is a responsibility to be a selector. I don't think you've ever had to select anything ever. I mean, even like what to put in your sandwich, you're still making decisions. And it is a slightly overwhelming task as well. There are so many drawings, and you're not supplied with any information about who's made the drawing. You could be about to reject your best friend's drawing, which is not comfortable. And there is something that happens between the dynamic of the three selectors. You're not on your own with the task, so it's a shared responsibility that's very well managed by the infrastructure of the prize. And it's not comfortable not to just have everything that's sent, but something does emerge that tries to be coherent and reflect a particular moment in a sort of slice through drawing for that year. I know the year I was a selector, to do with the nature of the work I was making at the time, which had a lot of geological references, there was an avalanche of rocks came in. And you can see someone thinking, right, Tania's selecting, I'm going to send a drawing of a rock. And I felt an instant kind of desire to push. I was like, did you just make that drawing of a rock? Because I just wanted to push the rocks away. I'm sure one of the rocks got through, but if there were 6 rocks, it would have been strange to accept all 6 rocks. So you even within that, you end up making a selection. If there's it's and it happens every year, the prize. So there's this sense of a another attempt. I've only applied once and was rejected, and I thought that's interesting. That's an interesting experience. And I felt.
What year was that?
You weren't one of the judges. One of my best friends was one of the judges, which is why I think that came to mind. But it was an interesting experience. Like, oh, okay, it didn't fit. And this is not the only moment of gatekeeping. Our sector is full of gatekeeping. Who gets funding, who gets shows, who gets the next opportunity. We are constantly fighting our way through gates. And I wish it wasn't so, but that is part of our job as artists, to have resilience and to know in ourselves that what we're doing is worth it before we send it anywhere. And what the drawing community does do is try and support people wherever they're at, whether they're getting through the gates or not. I do think there is that kind of conversation and communication going on that does support drawing practitioners. I'm not as aware of it for filmmakers, painters, sculptors, dancers. I don't see it being as active. So that's my response to that. It's not a full response.
Can I say, I would love to know how many of you have submitted this year, whether you're in or not. Did you look at all the judges, all the panel and selectors were? Because I never considered that. Not once have I done it. But my studio mate, she said that this year, I don't think they would like my work. I thought, what does it matter? You submit anyway.
How do you know?
How do you know?
Exactly. You've got to do it.
I think a future development could be a podcast of the selectors at work or something, because I particularly valued those conversations. It is very difficult, because I suppose in the 1990s we were probably looking at about 1,000 entries. At that time,
There was more.
there was more, right? But there was quite a procession of work, and I reflected on that process. I reflected that drawings are a mixture of immediate and slow burn, and I know that people had a sort of gut reaction about seeing the piece that was either repaid on a second and a third looking, because it's not just once that you view the work, it's a sift. And the quality of discussion, all I can say is that responsibility is exercised in the quality, certainly in the year I was a selector, in the quality of discussion across an artist and a writer, and myself as a curator at the time. And lots of things are held in the balance, and drawings come back into selection and then exit again. I think it's a discerning process, but inevitably you will view this year's show and something will be puzzling about why is that in, and not my drawings. And I think it comes back to that probably arbitrary, but the weight of experience that is in the room and in the selectors. And I think there is a great sense of responsibility in looking at work. More so, I would say, than many open shows. I'm not got a track record in this respect, but the Royal Academy's processes, mind you, they're dealing with probably 6,000 pieces of work, but it's pretty hit and miss, and the gatekeepers are very much those academicians on the
I think changing the judges means, that you can't necessarily predict what's going to happen as well. It's not like a house style to this, so it won't ever be the same.
No.
there's also another layer of decision making with awarding prizes. You think you're done, and then there's, oh, we've got to decide the prize, which is another kind of layer of responsibility. There's also the student selection as well. We have someone in the audience today who's a student in the student section. The working drawing is judged by a separate panel, but that's also, expanding the prize again. So it's trying to keep the gate as widely open as possible.
I'll comment, but there's a question. So.
Sorry, Gary.
Thanks, Tania. As a former gatekeeper, I wanted to pick up on that question because I think it's an interesting question. Somebody once asked me, and they actually spat at me, I think they said, how does it feel to have so much power? And I said, well, I don't have any power, but I have an enormous amount of responsibility. But it seemed to me the premise of your question that it was about the responsibility of the gatekeeper or the juror or the curator or the museum director or the critic towards the artist. There is a responsibility, but it's not the number one responsibility. The number one responsibility is the audience. So who is the audience for this particular scale project, and how does the artist and the artist's work fit into that dynamic? And the gatekeeper, as you call us, which, I'm up to, the best thing most things I've ever done is said no to people. No, we can't do that because it doesn't match our mission, it doesn't match our priorities, it doesn't meet our audience where we need to meet them. So the gatekeepers, the curators, the jurors, they're always responding, I think, from my perspective, to what the audience demand is, to what the audience needs are, to what the audience desire is. And then into that is, where does the money come from? How do you support this? So you also have to jump high for the funders. So there's the audience, the institution, the funders, and the artist is probably fourth, and that's a sad thing, but that's where it is.
Thank you, Gary.
I'm just going to say one thing, we've allowed putting together, because I think you're right, it's about responsibilities. And yes, not everyone will get their drawing into the show. But it is very much about the conversation, because we ask the panel to think about what a drawing is and what's a good drawing, and what's a drawing that's good through this sift, and it's a real sifting process. And then it's actually, is it a good drawing that all three of them can be real, that is going to go into the show. So you're talking about something which sets out on a set of parameters. Other things happen around what people see, because people might see a drawing that they think doesn't best represent, if they do know who the artist is, sometimes they're recognizable after they've gone through the process. They might think it's not quite as good as it could be this year, but quite often artists are putting in saying, I'm going to test my work at this point in time. So I think it's about having an appetite with open exhibitions to test where the work is and where is it going and how does it sit. Trusting, and that's the thing that we have built, is trusting we have amazing panellists every year, and people who are generous and curious about drawing. And it's the drawings that are in it, it's not you. It's never you that's being rejected. It's whether your drawing is sitting into a whole wider discussion about what comes in that year, what those panels are thinking about. And all the drawings are made within 18 months, so they're all fairly current. But I think it's right, it's about responsibility. No one's got a vested interest in saying that drawing doesn't come in. And quite often, a panel might really like a drawing, but it doesn't get into the show. It gets to do something else, or something else happens in another way. Sometimes we're watching people
I think it's an opportunity to go around and to open new doors. And in many countries in the world that I've been to where the doors are closed and there are very, very strong gatekeepers, that you can always find a different way. And so gatekeepers are there, yes, but there's other ways. So I would encourage all artists to actually look at the other ways and to see it as a positive, not just a negative.
Yeah. So we've got a little bit over time, and I know we've talked so much about the show. We need some time to view it before the next. I know Chloe's leading a drawing session at 1:30, so we haven't got that long. With the sandwich needs to be found as well. So thank you for those contributions, though. I hope we're all going to go in and look at the show together, hopefully. So keep asking us questions, or just come and talk to us if there are things that we've said that you'd like to follow up with. But thank you so much to Anita, Irene, David, and Elisa. Absolutely amazing to share this conversation with all